Anti-Semitism and the Arab conflict. Anti-Semitism, the prejudice, discrimination, or hostility directed against Jews, has a long and complex history that spans centuries and various cultures. One of the earliest forms of anti-Semitism can be traced back to religious beliefs and narratives. Jews were often persecuted because of the belief among Christians that Jews were responsible for the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. During the medieval period, the Catholic Church played a significant role in shaping public opinion about Jews. Church leaders, including some influential theologians, propagated negative stereotypes about Jews, such as the accusation of killing of Jesus. Jews have historically been involved in various economic activities, including money lending and trade. In medieval Europe, Christians were forbidden by religious laws from charging interest on loans, which made money lending a profession often taken up by Jews. This led to resentment and hostility towards Jews, who were seen as usurers. Anti-Semitism found fertile ground in nationalist and fascist movements in the 20th century. Leaders like Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party used anti-Semitism as a central component of their ideology, leading to the systematic extermination of millions of Jews during the Holocaust. The birth of Christianity. Initially, Christianity was seen as simply another Jewish sect, since Jesus and the disciples were Jewish and preached a form of Judaism. During the first few hundred years after the crucifixion of Jesus by the Romans, adherents of both Judaism and Christianity coexisted as they sought to practice their faiths in the same lands. The start of anti-Semitism. With the conversion of the Roman emperors, Christianity became the sole established religion of the Roman Empire, and the early church fathers sought to establish Christianity as the successor to Judaism. The refusal of Jews to accept Jesus as the Messiah was viewed as a threat to the Roman rulers and to Christianity. Since both religions came from the Old Testament, Christians sought to establish the validity of their new religion by claiming that it superseded Judaism. During the middle of the 14th century, the bubonic plague spread throughout Europe, killing an estimated one-third of the population. Fear, superstition, and ignorance prompted the need to find someone to blame, and the Jews were a convenient scapegoat because of the myths and stereotypes that were already believed about them. Martin Luther, the founder of the 16th century Reformation and Protestantism, wrote a pamphlet in 1545 entitled The Jews and Their Lies, claiming that Jews thirsted for Christian blood and urging the slaying of the Jews. Increasingly, Jews were subjected to political, economic, and social discrimination, resulting in the deprivation of their legal and civil rights. Since Jews were not allowed to own land and the church did not allow Christians to loan money for profit, Jews had few alternatives but to become moneylenders. Once they became associated with the forbidden trade, a new set of stereotypes evolved around the Jews as money-hungry and greedy. The term anti-Semitism was coined in 1873 by Wilhelm Marr, a German political agitator, in his work, Victory of Judaism over Germanism. His thesis was that Jews were conspiring to run the state and should be excluded from citizenship. In Russia, the people were told of a secret plot by rabbis to take over the world. Today's anti-Semitism. Recently, there has been a concerning upsurge of anti-Semitism around the world. This upsurge is directly connected to Israel and its war against Hamas and the humanitarian crises in Gaza, as well as accusing Israel of age-old anti-Semitic charges, such as using evil power to control the world. Before 1948, Palestine was home to a diverse population of Arabs, Jews, and Christians, as all groups had religious ties to the area, especially the city of Jerusalem. Who ruled Palestine? When Jesus was born, all of Jewish Palestine, as well as some of the neighboring Gentile areas, was ruled by Rome. After the Roman Empire, Palestine came under the rule of various empires and dynasties throughout history. After World War I and the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the British Mandate for Palestine was established in 1920 under the League of Nations. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly passed Resolution 181, also known as the UN Partition Plan for Palestine. This resolution recommended the partition of British Mandate Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. The modern State of Israel was established on May 14, 1948. On that day, the Jewish leaders in Palestine declared the establishment of the State of Israel, marking the end of the British Mandate for Palestine. The Jewish claim to the land, historically, the Kingdom of Israel, followed by the Kingdom of Judah, existed in the region known as Ancient Israel, roughly corresponding to modern-day Israel and Palestine. The presence of Jews in ancient Palestine is well documented, which existed from approximately the 11th century, before the birth of Jesus Christ, BCE, to the 6th century BCE. When the Romans took control of the region in the 1st century BCE, there were Jewish communities living in Palestine. Over time, Jerusalem became a center of Jewish life and religion. Under Roman control, the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 Common Era, CE, and the subsequent dispersal of Jews occurred. During the Roman period, Jewish communities continued to exist in Palestine, but the region also became home to various other populations due to migration, conquests, and trade routes. Following a failed Jewish revolt in AD 135, Roman Emperor Hadrian expelled the Jews from Jerusalem and decreed that the city and surrounding territory be part of a larger entity called Syria-Palestina. The area experienced demographic changes over time due to natural population movements, migrations, and shifts in regional power dynamics. Over the centuries, various peoples, including Romans, Byzantines, and later Islamic caliphates, came to control and inhabit the region. The demographic and cultural landscape of the area evolved through these historical processes. Although Jewish habitation never ceased, the population became overwhelmingly Arab. The conflict between Jews and Muslims. The history of the conflict can be traced back to the early days of Islam in the 7th century and the subsequent expansion of Muslim empires, as well as the establishment of Jewish communities in various parts of the Middle East and North Africa. One of the key points of contention is the land of Palestine, which is considered sacred by both Jews and Muslims. Both groups have historical and religious ties to the region, leading to conflicting claims and disputes over territory. In the second half of the 19th century, the long-standing yearning of Jews to return to the territory of their ancestors culminated in the nationalistic movement called Zionism. Zionism is a political and cultural movement that emerged in the late 19th century with the goal of establishing a Jewish homeland in Palestine. The term Zionism is derived from Zion, which is a hill in Jerusalem. The movement gained momentum in response to the rising anti-Semitism in Europe, particularly in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The primary objective of Zionism was to address the need for a national home for the Jewish people, where they could live free from persecution and discrimination. The movement sought to establish a Jewish state in Palestine, then part of the Ottoman Empire, and later under British mandate. The migration of Jews to Palestine after World War II played a crucial role in the establishment of the State of Israel and contributed to tensions with both the British authorities and the Arab population in the region. The post-war migration of Jews to Palestine significantly shaped the demographic and political landscape of the region. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan recommending the creation of independent Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. The justification for the partition was based on the belief that creating separate states for Jews and Arabs would address the long-standing tensions and provide a solution to the conflict. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan, but the Arab leadership rejected it. The Arab states opposed the creation of Israel and saw it as a violation of the rights of the Palestinian Arabs. The surrounding Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, intervened militarily in support of the Palestinian Arabs. The 1948 Arab-Israeli War ensued. The aftermath of the war resulted in territorial changes and population displacement. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinian Arabs became refugees, and the borders of Israel were different from those proposed in the UN partition plan. Armistice agreements were signed between Israel and its neighboring states, but a comprehensive peace settlement was not achieved. The Arab-Israeli conflict remains a significant geopolitical issue, with ongoing disputes over territory, refugees, and the status of Jerusalem. A quote from a leading Zionist, Edward D. Mitchell, during the early days of the State of Israel. Jews around the world will never be respected until they have a homeland. It is imperative that the Jews have a refuge and protection that only a state can provide. Jews are against any discrimination of any group, knowing that it is just a short jump to them. In conclusion, the Jewish-Arab conflict revolves around the historical and territorial disputes in the land of Israel-Palestine, rooted in competing national aspirations. Despite numerous peace initiatives, a comprehensive resolution remains elusive, making the Israeli-Palestinian conflict a persistent and complex issue in the Middle East.